Ever feel like you're drowning in all the advice out there?
Yeah. So much information overload.
It can be tough to know where to focus. Well, today on this deep dive, we're going to tackle a book that claims to have the answer. Average is a failing formula. Catchy title, right?
Definitely grabs your attention. And the author doesn't hold back. They argue that accepting average as like the standard is a recipe for failure.
Wow. Sets the bar pretty high right from the start. But I guess it makes you think, how often do we just settle for good enough?
Right, like in our jobs or even with our personal goals. It's so easy to fall into that trap.
I know I'm guilty of it sometimes, but the book argues that good enough actually leads to stagnation.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is. One of the examples they use is reading. The average worker reads less than one book a year.
Seriously, just one book.
That's what they say. But get this, top CEOs reportedly read 60 or more.
60 books. Wow, that's a big difference.
It really makes you wonder if that constant learning and exposure to new ideas contributes to their success.
That's what the author seems to be suggesting. And it's not just about reading. They talk about how this whole average thinking also impacts how we plan for the future.
Okay, so like setting goals and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Most people just kind of assume everything's going to go smoothly, but life rarely works that way.
Tell me about it. There are always unexpected challenges, right?
Right. The author compares it to packing for a vacation. You know, you wouldn't just bring clothes for sunny weather.
Unless you were going someplace where it never rained.
Sure. But the point is, you got to be prepared for the unexpected, the storms that life might throw your way.
I like that analogy. It's a good reminder to think about all those curveballs that can come out of nowhere. Speaking of curveballs, the author actually shares a pretty personal story in the book about being betrayed by their business partners.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they believe that situation could have been avoided if they hadn't taken such an average approach to things.
So they're advocating for a more, proactive mindset.
Exactly. They call it a 10x mindset. And before you picture yourself working like 24/7, it's not about brute force. It's about setting goals and taking actions that are, 10 times greater than what might seem reasonable at first.
So it's like thinking bigger and bolder, not necessarily working harder.
Right. Like, what would your 10x goal be in your career or your personal life?
It's kind of a mind-blowing concept when you really think about it. It makes you wonder what's actually possible.
Absolutely. And the author uses a great example to illustrate this. Howard Schultz, during the 2008 recession.
Oh, yeah, the Starbucks CEO.
Yep.
Right.
While other CEOs were cutting costs and just hunkering down, Schultz did something totally unexpected.
What did he do?
He basically hit the road and started visiting Starbucks stores all over the country.
Wait, seriously? He was out there on the front lines during a recession.
That's right. Talk about a hands-on approach. Most CEOs would probably be stuck in board meetings,
Hiding out in their offices.
Exactly. But Schultz, he was out there connecting with his customers, understanding their needs. And, the author argues that this 10x thinking probably played a huge role in Starbucks weathering that storm and continuing to thrive.
That's really interesting. I mean, it makes sense, right? Thinking outside the box, taking bold action.
Instead of just reacting with fear and scarcity, like a lot of people probably were back then.
Yeah. So this 10x mindset, it's not just about business, it's about life.
Yeah, seems like it. The author definitely wants us to apply this thinking to every aspect of our lives.
The big challenge.
It is. But maybe it's worth considering. Maybe average really is a failing formula.
One thing that really struck me about this book is how the author connects this average thinking to the struggles of the middle class.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that connection.
Yeah, it's like they're saying that clinging to those traditional, average approaches to work and finances is actually hurting people.
Kind of keeping them stuck in a rut.
Exactly. And it makes sense, right? The world is changing so fast, those old playbooks might not cut it anymore.
So what's the solution? What does the author propose?
Well, they talk a lot about entrepreneurship and how average is like the main reason why so many new businesses fail.
Oh, really? So what are people doing wrong, according to the author?
Okay, so imagine this. Someone gets all excited about an idea, right? They write up a business plan, maybe even get some funding, but their projections are all based on this idea that everything's going to go perfectly.
So they're not accounting for all the unexpected challenges that come up.
Exactly. They're not planning for that 10x effort it often takes to really make a business succeed.
So like underestimating the competition or how market conditions can shift unexpectedly?
Right. Or even just how much sheer work it takes to get a business off the ground.
Yeah.
They haven't planned for those 10x challenges.
So it's not just about having a great idea, it's about being prepared to put in the extra effort.
Absolutely. And there's another interesting point. The book makes a lot of businesses also fail because they don't price their products or services high enough.
Why is that? Like a lack of confidence, maybe?
The author links it back to that whole average thinking thing. They suggest that everyone involved, from the employees to the customers, might be operating at an average level, so they don't see the true value of what's being offered.
It's like this collective mindset holding everyone back.
Exactly.
Huh.
And that's really the core message here. Average thinking can permeate every aspect of our lives, keeping us stuck in this cycle of mediocrity.
But we don't have to accept that, right? We have the power to choose something different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can choose to think 10x instead.
So it's about pushing beyond our perceived limits in every area of life, not just business.
To really drive this point home, the author uses this powerful analogy. Imagine having to carry a 1,000-pound backpack every day while facing a 40 miles per hour headwind and walking uphill.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty intense image.
Yeah, they're not sugarcoating it. Average is a failing formula, and it's on us to break free from it.
It's like a call to action. Look at every area of your life and ask yourself, where am I settling for average? And where can I push for those 10x results?
Because clinging to average can have real consequences. Misery, uncertainty, even outright failure.
It's a stark choice, comfort and mediocrity, or striving for something truly extraordinary.
But here's the good news. The author believes that there's no shortage of success in the world. Any limitations we experience might just be a result of our own average thinking and actions.
It's a real mindset shift. So how do we actually make this happen? How do we move from average to 10x?
Well, one of the things the book emphasizes is surrounding ourselves with exceptional people, thinkers, and doers who inspire us to reach higher.
So it's about building that network of people who challenge us to be our best selves.
The author even goes so far as to say that we should reject the advice and company of those who embody average thinking.
That's interesting. It's about being intentional about the influences we allow into our lives. But what about our existing relationships, like with family and close friends?
The author argues that even our closest relationships can be affected, and sometimes even improved, by a commitment to this 10x mindset.
So it's not just about our individual efforts, there's a ripple effect.
Exactly. When we start operating at a 10x level, it can inspire those around us to do the same. They give an example of a CEO who implemented 10x thinking within their company and how it led to increased innovation and productivity across the board.
So by raising our own standards, we might actually elevate everyone around us. That's pretty powerful.
And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you, our listener. The author argues that average thinking is a major factor in why most new businesses fail. So if you were starting a business today, what one 10x action would you prioritize to defy those odds?
That's a great question to consider. What bold move, what game-changing strategy could you implement that would set your business apart and propel it towards that 10x level of success?
I think it's worth taking some time to really reflect on that question and see what comes up.
It might be something you've been hesitant to do, something that feels a little outside your comfort zone.
Right. Because remember, the whole point of this 10x mindset is to break free from those self-imposed limitations and embrace a world of extraordinary possibilities.
You know, it's funny because when I think about that word average, it really does make me think of just blending in, like not standing out, not making a real impact,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that seems to be exactly what this author is pushing against, right? Like their whole message is about defying those expectations and creating something truly remarkable.
They even talk about how this whole 10x mindset can actually change our perception of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like things start moving faster because we're operating at this higher level of energy and intention.
It's like tapping into a hidden reserve of power and focus.
Right.
We become more efficient, more productive, more capable of achieving our goals.
And it's not just about individual success either. The author argues that this 10x approach can actually improve our relationships too.
How so?
Well, they make this point that when we raise our own standards, we tend to attract people who are also striving for excellence.
Oh, I see. So it's like creating this upward spiral where everyone is pushing each other to be their best.
Exactly. It's like building a support system of people who understand and embrace that 10x mindset.
People who challenge us, inspire us, and help us stay accountable.
That's a really good point. And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for you, our listener. The author argues that average thinking is one of the biggest reasons why most new businesses fail. So if you were starting a business today, what one 10x action would you prioritize to defy those odds?
That's a great question to think about. What's that one bold move, that game-changing strategy that would set your business apart and put it on the path to 10x success?
It might be something that feels a little scary, something outside your comfort zone. But remember, this whole 10x mindset is about breaking free from those limitations and embracing those extraordinary possibilities. So don't settle for average, aim for 10x. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.